Okay, thank you. One of the things I'd like to ask is for you to each, we have turned off your videos during the movie, and now I'd like to ask you to please turn your videos back on, which means at the bottom left-hand corner, that little camera that has a red line through it, if you click it, your video will come back on. And the other thing, the next thing that you can do, so I'm just going to give you a couple of instructions before we start the Q&A. So please go up to View and select Multi-Speaker, because we want to be able to have me and Bobby on.
I've asked him to unmute.
So choose Multi-Speaker, but do not unmute. Please do not unmute. Now, in order to ask a question or share your experience of the film, I'd like you to go down to React. On the bottom of the screen should be something called React, and if you click on React, there's a place to raise your hand. Don't click on it unless you want to, but if you do, click Raise Your Hand, and I will call on people.
Bobby's video doesn't, Bobby needs to put his video on.
Okay, Bobby, please put your video on.
My
So we
video says I'm on. Can you hear me?
now I can hear you.
Oh, I'll try to pin him then.
And
Oh.
I can see me in my video. So
Oh, there you are.
Oh, there you are. Perfect.
That's
Okay,
oh, yeah,
great.
he needed to talk. That's where you needed to,
Oh, he needed to talk.
to
That's
become a
now
multi-speaker.
excellent. Okay, let me just see. Is there anything? Yes. So the last thing I want to say is I will call on you. And when I do, don't touch the hand. Leave your hand raised so that we will put down your hand and unmute and
Remute
and
you.
remute you when you're finished interacting. So, okay, anyone that would like to, okay, I have a raised hand from John. Oh, 1 second before you start, John, I just want to say, so Bobby Roth is with us. He is the creator and producer of this film and is anxious to hear your reactions to it. I don't know a whole lot more about Bobby other than that he's produced dramas in the past and has been a filmmaker. I'm embarrassed that I don't have more of a gracious introduction for you, Bobby, but anyone, I've called on John, so let's start with John.
Go ahead, John.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. That was quite moving and inspirational. I really saw the importance in telling our story. And I think in our men's club, I've been in there a long time, and I don't know if we've ever told our story about our dads. Lou used to ask us, "How is your relationship with your dad?" And but I really enjoyed the kind of the first part of everybody telling their story about their fathers and their mothers, and then going into all the dynamics of what that created to create us and what we think. And so the way you did that, Bobby, was just outstanding. I love it. Uh, I found myself Googling your interviewees just so I could know who they were, in the as an actor or a producer or a educator or whatever their title was, which I found um, fascinating. And I really appreciate each and every one of them that they really shared from their hearts, and I could feel that they were vulnerable, and I think you really got to the core of telling our stories. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed all that, and it
John,
you know
John,
it's,
before you continue, I don't want to go on about it, but I think I want to tell you who I am, just if you guys don't know me, because um, I made movies for 50 years, and I did a lot of mainstream TV, and this is only my second documentary, and the first one was a short. Um, so it does, my process has something to do with what the movie ends up being. And I'll tell you more about that as we go, because it does relate to its subject just by the way it was made. But I just wanted to tell you that most of my feature films and television were, for whatever reason, I was always interested in stories about autobiographical stories and stories about men. And I'd always wanted to make a movie about mentors because I had a lot of people who were good to me throughout my life and my career. And but because I was working, and I did a lot of mainstream television that you guys would know of, Prison Break, Lost, Grey's Anatomy, um, and so on. And and I kept putting off making this film about my mentors, and they all passed away. And you would know some of them were famous, like Sidney Poitier or Sidney Pollack, and some of them were guys like Bob Young, who should have been more famous, or Irv Kershner, whatever. But um, so I kind of had it in my head to do a movie about people who would help me. And then I had this grandson born on my birthday last year, and I thought I wanted to do a movie about role models because I wondered what was life going to be like for boys growing up in this world today, and as the last election showed, they need help. They need to be pulled in. They need not to be pushed away or led by somebody. And I'm sorry, I don't know your politics, but I'm guessing this is not a group of MAGA people,
No.
um, because I don't see the MAGA people working on themselves very much. Um, but so that was I just want you guys to know that was the impetus to make the movie. But that said, I never made a movie without a script. I did, 150 projects over the last 50 years, and but I always was following a screenplay either by me or by somebody else. So this was kind of a voyage of discovery, and I think along the way, because I didn't know things, I made a lot of accidental positive moves. One of them was, and you just saw the movie, was I had no crew whatsoever. All but one of these people met alone with me, either in their house or my house, and I think it gave them a certain feeling of intimacy, and maybe for better or worse, made them forget that they were in a movie. And so when I'm in my kitchen with Eric Dane and he's telling me about his dad's suicide, or when I'm in my kitchen with Barry Jossen and he's talking about how his father beat his mother, I don't think they were really aware after a few minutes that they were in a movie. And it was, for better for worse, I think for better, it gave you the movie that you just saw. And I just wanted you guys to know that was part of my process. So I didn't go in with a very set. I went in wanting to learn because my impetus was I was trying to find out why I am the way I am. And so I asked these people who were for me the best people. I just thought they were good people, the men and the women. And initially I started out thinking it would just be men and just a few, and then I realized you can't make a movie about men without asking women. And so they were chosen. So everybody was chosen with the only proviso that they be what I thought were good people. And it's very arbitrary because it's just my impression. Um, And I just screened the movie. I'm in New York City, and I just screened it tonight and had a Q&A with New Yorkers. So this is a lot of fun to now meet you guys. Because anyway, so I just wanted to give you some background so you knew who I was and what the reason for making the movie has been.
Perfect. Thank you, Bobby.
you.
John, do you have a question for Bobby or
Yeah, I'm
just?
sorry I interrupted you, John.
No, that's fine. I just want to acknowledge you for what you've done and how it's impacted me. I want to, we've been doing work on practicing listening with compassion in our men's club, and a lot of the men in our men's club have told their stories and I just saw the importance of telling our story. Um, and the part about change and growing and growth is I think a really important part of it, because all of us have become men that that have grown. We're not our fathers. We've grown. We have learned how to listen with compassion. Are we fully there yet? No, but we are in the process and will always be. I'm 72, and I expect I'm going to be doing this until my last day. So so thank you very much. I'll let somebody else ask some questions. I don't think I have any particular questions, so thank you again.
Fabulous. John, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
John Myjack.
Okay, ask to unmute.
Hey, good, Francine. I've got to thank you deeply for allowing me to give way to this evening and listen to this amazing movie. And Bobby, seriously, I was watching the movie thinking, how did you make this so incredibly intimate? And one-on-one, you answered the question. I'm 72 also, John. And my father died at 15, when I was 15, and he was in his early 30s. And my entire life has been shaped by that man. And even today, I still am looking for him in me and seeing him in others in ways that are interesting. My mother died at 50, and so both of those people have been instrumental in making me who I am, and who I am as a man who has strived to be a good man. So I don't know, in some ways, watching this film has helped me touch both of those people in my life in a way that has been helpful. So thank you. I have no question, because you answered them when you talked about how you made the movie. And
Thank you.
for seeing it again.
Perfect. Thank you, John.
I'm 74, so like,
Well,
well,
Still young.
Brad Wy- Brad Warren.
Yes. Okay. Unmuted? Yeah. Yes. Hi, Francine. And I'm 73, so I'm right in the middle of you guys. But Bobby, in addition to everything that everybody said, I actually do have a question. I'm guessing that the amount of what do they say? The footage on the floor is 10 times what we got to see. So kind of a two-part question. How do you decide what to put in and what to leave out? And how do you decide how to order it one person after another in a way that makes it flow like it did?
That's a great question, and it's important because I think the process in this case is worth sharing. So I made the movie basically with just me and an editor, my friend Jesse Kane, who did a magnificent job as far as I'm concerned, just helping me organize myself. And there is more like 8 times as much or 10 times as much footage. And in fact, even up to the very end, we had a whole 10-minute section on therapy. But kind of arbitrarily, I decided the movie should be 90 minutes before we ever made the movie. And there was no reason to think that. I just thought anything longer would be too much. And even this feels like it's an awful lot to ask people to watch, in the city. So thank you guys, all of you. Um, but we did it. I'll share this part. We did it more like filmmakers than social scientists. We literally tried to find the people that were the most, and this is an awful word to use, but entertaining. But I didn't want to bore people with the movie, and I hope I didn't bore you guys.
Oh, no.
And
I
so
use words engaging.
and that's what we were hoping for.
Yes. Yes.
So, and somebody tonight asked me, like, why are there so many people from the film business in the movie? And the reason is they're my friends. I mean, it wasn't like I was looking for theatrical people. But that said, a lot of I interviewed more people than you saw. There were 41 people in the movie, but there were another at least 15 that I didn't use at all
Hmm.
because I just didn't think they had enough to say. And this probably won't shock you. Most of them were younger. I wanted diversity all the way across. And so I teach at times. So I had some of my students. I had a boy as young as 15. But in the end, I just went to the people who I thought had something to say to an audience. And also, I went with people who I thought could say it in for lack of a better term, entertaining way. Because if you bore people, they're not going to watch.
Oop.
Okay.
And trying to make people both entertaining and more and thoughtful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, Jai.
So, Bobby, I'm still digesting the impact the movie had on me. So I don't have so much to say about the content. What I can say is that this was magnificent. And for me personally, I found it exquisitely validating. I would like to be a part of getting this movie out into the culture, whatever that looks like. And what occurred to me is that there is a community that is a real ally to this community, the community of good men and good women. It's the highly sensitive person community. The work that Elaine Aron created, I don't know if you're familiar with it. They recently put out a movie about the highly sensitive man. And highly sensitive doesn't mean easily offended or hurt. It means people who feel things deeply, who notice details, who are committed to living the life that occurs for them, not the life that the culture tells us is what is sane. So I can be in touch in whatever way to hook you up with the HSP community if you want to pursue that. Because I think
that's kind of why I asked Francine to set this evening up, because I don't know exactly who the audience for the movie is, and that's why I'm schlepping around to different cities with the film and going to festivals, just trying to see who shows up.
This movie needs to be seen now more than ever.
I think so too.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Jai. David Furshine.
I think Ari was next.
It's not in order. Go ahead, David.
Okay, I just am seeing Ari ahead of me, but I'm happy to go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so funny that to hear Jai is my neighbor. And half of what he said is you spoke perfectly for me, but actually I disagree a little bit with partly what you said, Jai, because what I want to acknowledge, well, I don't disagree with it. What you said is great. I want to add to it. I was moved by this film. I'm actually a little annoyed with myself that I didn't have the time to read Francine's email before this got set up. This is a great movie. Um, and it should be seen by everybody. I was watching it, and at a couple of points I was sitting here thinking, I would like to go march into Joe Rogan's office and say, I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care what you think of me. We're going to watch this movie, damn it. And then I wanted to walk into Dana White's office and do the same thing and pound my chest. I mean, this was a fantastic film. I think anybody and everybody should see it. That's what I mean, Jai. It's not just the HSP world. Anybody and everybody should see it. What I was really moved by was how it got to me. And I could also imagine how it could be supportive of other people. I have to acknowledge that for me, it really touched this place where yeah, the parts where he was saying the person being interviewed was saying that they didn't want to, like Peter Coyote. He's a hero of mine. I love watching him in the movies, but he's just such a cool human being, and he's so real and honest, and so so is everybody else in there. It was so genuine, and I don't know that it doesn't need to be turned into a religion or a cult or a thing or a movement, but it sure as hell needs to be shown a lot more. And if you could I would love it if you would do this again. And I'll go invite everybody I know. I will get 150 people here, probably times 10. I will just get a whole bunch of people to come watch this. I started calling a few people while it was on. I got one friend here who made it on early on. I got my buddy Matt Quain on, and I'm really glad that he made it. And I loved this film. It was so touching and moving, and it covered so much, so many things that are just so honest and central to us being human. So thank you. And I want to be part of helping it spread. This should go all over the place.
Okay, David, we will get back to you on that. Thank you. Ari.
Hi. Hello. Thank you, Bobby, so much for sharing this film with us. It was really clear that this was very deliberately and thoughtfully made, and that, you put a lot of intention into how it was constructed and who was included, which is why I had a very specific question that maybe, I don't know that how many people would notice this, but I did, and so I'll ask. You talked a few answers ago about how it was important to you to have a diverse array of perspectives on this sort of question of gender and what does it mean to be a good man, which is why it was surprising to me that you included no trans men in, the perspectives that you mentioned. The one reference to a trans man included a lot of him being misgendered by his dad, in the interview. And I understand that's like the authentic language that his dad used, like you can't edit that. But was the absence of trans voices deliberately being included in this an editing decision? Was it that you couldn't find relevant voices? Was it something you thought of? I'm just genuinely curious about, was that present in your process or not? And would thinking about it change the way you would have made the movie in hindsight?
No, I'm glad you asked. It's a good question. And I did interview, part of the problem was the conceit of the movie. These were all people that I could verify that they were good people. And so I would have to know them, and not just know them, but know them really well. And I didn't personally know a trans person, man or woman. But Jesse did, my editor. So we interviewed not once, but twice, a fellow named Jude in the Bay Area. I don't know, I'm forgetting his last name. And he was someone I didn't know, but I got to know during the making of the movie. And in fact, he was at the Mill Valley screening, Francine, too, because he and his partner came to the screening, and he was born April, and he's a 50-year-old trans man. And and the problem was he had a lot of problems on camera. I interviewed him twice because it was important for me to try to include him in the movie. So your question speaks to a question that I asked, but he just wasn't able to do the interview, and I didn't know, and I kept thinking we had him in the movie, and I didn't have any people that I was close with who were from that community. So the best I could do was Denis, who's been a mentor to me, Dan, and to talk about his son, who had been born a Chinese girl. And but I appreciate the question, and I'm giving you, I'm only going to give you guys honest answers. That's what happened. But it was in my, and I'll add this in case somebody's already wondering. I had two, and I don't know what the appropriate term is. I'll just say Latinos who had said they would do it and then didn't do it. So because part of the problem is I'm not making this movie with any budget whatsoever. So it's not like I could just hire people. I had to get people who wanted to do it, were my friends. And Nestor Carbonell, in the end, who's Cuban American and a very close friend of mine, just decided he didn't want to expose himself because, you know, the other thing that you guys will understand is that everybody was exposing themselves. It wasn't like I was just asking them questions. I was asking to share intimate parts of themselves. And so the only Latina is my friend Gina Gallego, who gave me a great hour, but she didn't say much that we could use. So she has one moment. But all of these things, Eddie Olmos, who's an actor who you guys might know, said he would do it. He booked 3 times and then didn't do it. So, you know, for various reasons of his own, nothing negative, just this is what I ended up with. But I think it's a fair question you asked, and I just wanted to give you as honest an answer. So it was in my head to get as big a community as possible, and it's much of a reflection of the group.
That
Thanks.
makes sense. Thank you very much for sharing.
Okay, John Christie.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Bobby. I have a question.
Do you not have your
But-
video on, John?
I do have my video on and I see myself.
I see John.
Good.
Yeah, here I am.
It's just not popping up for some reason.
Okay.
So I don't have a question, but it's not often that I watch a movie and the person that made the movie is there. So I do have feedback. I give it 80 Rotten Tomatoes. And it has me thinking. So if your purpose for this movie is to provoke me to leave and think about myself, you succeeded. What I felt tripped up about was the homogeny of your people being actors and producers. I would love to have seen everyday people. And hold on one second, don't go away. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Mm-hmm.
I was recently interviewed and featured in a training video for post-traumatic stress. I'm a retired first responder. And it just so happened that I get a copy of it today and I just watched it. And then I clicked onto here. And my wife said, "What do you think?" And I said to her, "It was pretty good, but this old guy that looks a lot like me was on camera," right? So I get the exposed thing. I get it. But it really came up for me a lot. Like this is one tiny little section of people. And I wondered throughout the movie, and it may be not true, but I wondered if that's representative of that community. I would love to see somebody watch this, give you the proper budget, and have everyday people on there, because I think you're onto something. Because I'm thinking now, in the quirky thing of life, I'm friends with a guy whose wife made the Dan Rather documentary. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but it's on Netflix, and I highly recommend it. Because Dan Rather was an amazing guy. He's still living, but he was like one of the first journalists to talk about civil rights, and he was very much part of that. And I felt more like I know him afterwards. And so yeah, that's what I want to say. I want someone to watch this and give you however much you need to do the everyday version of this, and 90 minutes is fine.
No, and I'll just speak to that, John, because it would be a different. I don't say that wouldn't be a good movie, because I think it would be really interesting. I agree with you. But as I was explaining to you, the conceit of the movie is I know all these people.
Exactly. I
And
get
I've
it.
known them- and I've known most of them for more than 20 years. Peter Coyote and I have been working together for 40. And Henry Winkler played my father in an autobiographical movie I made, and my own son played his son in the movie 25 years ago. And so that is the conceit of the movie. And I do recognize the issue, and but I'm glad what it triggered to you is there would be a movie that could be made, and it would be a different movie, but it would probably be a very good movie that you're suggesting. So I don't disagree with everything you're saying. I'm just explaining to you.
Yeah, I got you. And I don't want to make you defensive at all,
Yeah,
because
no,
if your goal was for me to be provoked and think about my parents and their parents and me as a parent and me as a grandparent, then you succeeded, because that's what's brewing in me right now. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks. And by the way, I don't want anybody to be afraid to say anything to me. I mean, you guys are all very polite, but I'm here to learn. And I mean, I just made the best movie I could make. And I have to tell you, when David Francine saw the movie, it was the first time I ever saw the movie myself with other people. He knows this, right? So it's not normally we test things. Normally you have a crew, maybe sometimes, I mean, I did a lot of mainstream TV with, always a crew of 250 people around. And you're always getting feedback, and then you take it out and you test it. I didn't get to do that on this movie, so it's tremendously important for me that I get to hear from you guys, and so you're helping me more than I hope you do.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Okay, Brian. Just start speaking.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for making the film. It definitely has me reflecting on a number of things. The thing that really kind of got me was the whole idea of the more traditional feminine and masculine definitions that we have in our society of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. And when the gentleman had, the ideas up on the board, and men are strong and don't cry, and women want to have babies and all that, and it actually makes me sad that in 2024 those stereotypes are still so prevalent in our society. I mean, years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, when John Gray came out with Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, that was kind of an interesting idea and an interesting dichotomy. I've never felt really that men were one way and women were another. I've always felt that you have masculine tendencies and feminine tendencies, and people have, a mix of those to one degree or another. I consider myself a fairly masculine kind of a guy. And I cry a lot, and, I'm sensitive, and I get that from my mother, and I get, working with tools and building stuff around the house from my father. But, one of the opportunities I would see for a film like this is really trying to educate people and have people look at those stereotypes and, kind of break down the walls. I mean, it just really saddens me that those stereotypes are still so indoctrinated. And in our political environment now, it's probably even worse because it's just that's almost as polarizing as our political world, where having such a small definition of masculinity and femininity that it's not very fluid, and maybe that's a lot of what the younger people are doing with their fluidity and fluidity with gender and everything, is maybe they're more comfortable mixing those ideas, and I certainly applaud that. But getting the whole idea of people talking about what masculinity looks like and having conversations about that, I think is super important. I was in the men's club for over 20 years, and we did that. I mean, you should come to a meeting. We sit around as a group of men in a circle in a room, and we talk about what's happening in our lives, and we talk about our fears and our inner lives, and all those conversations that men don't typically have and that women do. And there's a lot of power in sharing that aspect of ourselves as men. So I would highly invite you to come to one of those meetings and embolden yourself to think about how important it is for us to have those conversations and to break down some of those barriers and allow people to be more fluid and express themselves more fully. And I because you wanted some feedback, I have a hard time calling a man Bobby. Here's my question: have you always gone by Bobby? And was that a conscious decision at your part? Because I would think most men growing up in our society would become Bob at some point, but maybe you could speak to that.
My mom and dad called me Bob. I never liked it. Too many consonants, Bob, Bob. And also I grew up at a time when it was such a common name that I never had a class with less than 3 Roberts. And so it was a fairly pathetic way of singling myself out to just, it just seemed to work. And I became Bobby Rock. And I
stayed that way.
I personally like it. And the other thing that's great is whenever I get a call and somebody calls me Robert, I know that it's like
Thank you.
Thanks so much. So with that one, I'll pick Robert Newman. Robert?
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling on me and my inner Bobby. So I agree. I want to chime in and ride John Christie's coattails. I am mightily provoked. And I am an adoptee raised by adopted parents. And when I was 45, I discovered I reached out to my birth parents. And my mother was pregnant with me at 15, born when I was born when she was 16. And my birth parents did not marry. They went off and married other people and have had long marriages. And I was raised the youngest of 3. I'm actually the oldest of 12. Or in addition, I'm in the oldest of 12. So I find myself not only upset with my with my adopted parents, quite naturally, but also with my birth parents, because I've had different types of relationships with them going on 20, 25 years. So good job provoking me.
Yeah.
The question I wanted to present to you is, with all your years of experience in Hollywood, I'm curious about your perspective about, is it possible for Hollywood to produce masculine movies without the toxicity?
Um, it's I have to think because Hollywood really isn't that monolithic to me. So
Fair
is it
enough.
possible there could be a movie that, you know, but I also want to speak to the issue that it does, especially through film distribution and financing. Um, it's hard to get anything good done because Hollywood, like capitalism, kind of, um, I think it was Hegel who said the first law of any system is to reproduce itself, right? They're not interested in truly innovative work. You know, what they're really interested in, and it's gotten worse and worse, is making the same thing over and over, which to them is a sure thing. And if that's all that people can see, people will pay to see it. So I guess that's kind of a negative association I have, which is kind of what led me as a filmmaker. My favorite movies that I made were all made with my own money. They're expensive, but nobody was saying to me, "You can't say this." They were as good as I can make it. This movie is as good as I could make it. Nobody stopped me, except that you won't see many 90-minute movies that cost about $25,000, right? And but I always thought that when I did my own work, the best way to do it was to make it with my own money, and then at least I was only competing for distribution like this. But even that has became. I made a movie a couple of years ago, right? And unfortunately, I finished it right as the pandemic hit, which was personal to me because it was about based on my sister's death. Um, and I made it with my own money, but I could never get it really distributed. It's available like on some streaming platforms, but that's really the way they control content, and essentially that's how they control ideology. It's a financial thing. They don't. They would never say to you, "You can't say this, you can't say that," and they might point to some movies like I don't know if you people have seen. You probably will. Emilia Paris. Right? It's a new movie. It's a foreign film. Uh, it's about uh, a card. I don't want to give it. It's about someone who it's about someone who wants to uh, a man that wants to become a woman that in a very improbable situation does. And it's very provocative. I would love to see what you guys think about it. But it wasn't done in this country, and it wasn't done by American finance, you know. And so, in answer to that, I maybe take a beat, say this: it's very tough to make movies outside the system because they're very expensive and they're very expensive to distribute, you know, in most cases. And so, it's why I feel like I want to turn to documentaries and just do things like this. And you guys are helpful because what I have to do is figure out who to get it out. Francine and I have talked about this. How do I reach you guys? I mean, this was great for me that you just saw the movie whenever you could, right? I reach people that I wanted to reach, and you're my audience, right? You and your children, and people who think like. But there isn't really a distribution network that I know of that's set up for me to connect with you, right? So we're kind of trying to break ground with that. Yeah. And I'll only get better at this if I can make more movies and get responses from people like you.
Thank you.
I hope I answered you.
Yeah, we will do what we can. Gary,
Okay. Still can't get the video to work, but that's okay. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for that movie, Bobby. It was very powerful. I've been all over the map emotionally because I saw so much of myself coming through what people were saying. Um, and I mean, in my life, I look at how can I be a better father, grandfather, great grandfather. But all of a sudden, watching this has me refocused and just wanting to get there, be better. So it's amazing on that level. And yeah, I just like Jai said, I'm still trying to process what I saw. And maybe I don't process, you know. As someone once said to me, there are no answers, there's just better questions. And this here was a lot of better questions, and they're popping up all the time. If I have a question, it would be, how did you get people to be so real? Because if you tell somebody to be real, they put on their, here's my real mask, and you make it a version of reality. But what I think made this so powerful that everybody was real. And how did you get that? How did you get them to do that? And thank you again.
Thank you. And all of your questions are making me come up with hopefully better answers. And I didn't ask anybody to be real. I mean, it's like I told you when I asked them at the end, like, why did you do this? They said, because you asked me. I think I just kept it simple, and they knew me, and they knew that there was no hiding. It wouldn't make it into the movie. You know, the things that I was interested in are in the movie. And I like sharing some stories with you guys that my friend Chris Medic, who's the quadriplegic fellow that was in the movie. I'm friends with him. He was an assistant director on a movie I made 40 years ago, but I'm also friends with his dad, who's a kind of famous director named Peter Medic, who's from a Hungarian immigrant. And I interviewed both of them. And as I was making the movie, and I wanted to intercut a father and son, but what came up for me, and this is in the spirit of honesty, I tell you this, I thought it made Peter look really bad. You know, you already know enough of the story that Chris's dad was having an affair while his mom was right. There was no way to tell that story, and I think I would have hurt Peter. So it didn't happen, you know. So these are just things I thought were more important than the film, right? Everybody was helping me to hurt them or to damage, possibly damage a father-son relationship that already had been, you know, they got a long way to get back together, and Chris adores his dad. I mean, these were considerations that had nothing to do with the movie, and I just wanted to share with you the human side of this, you know, that when you ask me, how do you get people to be real? Well, they have to trust you, and they trusted me, and so I wore it as a burden that I didn't want anybody to be hurt by this movie. And I know they were, in trusting me, they were making themselves vulnerable in a way that exceeded my expectations. And so from my end, I thought the only way I can reward that trust is trying to protect them, not to make them look good in a Hollywood way, to get their vulnerability, but without over, I mean, I at least wanted them to know. So Barry Johnson, who is a big executive who talks about his family problems with his dad's mental illness and the violence in his household, I showed him the movie, and I wanted to make sure before I showed you this movie, you should know, like, I wanted to get, even though people gave me their permission up front before they said anything, I wanted them to see, because the thing about filmmaking is the way you cut things can change it completely, right? You've seen political ads, right? So I want you to know that all but 4 of the people who participated or in the movie have seen the movie and blessed it. And I'm most proud of that they exposed themselves and they were okay, you know. And Barry had one little note that I took something out that had nothing to do. It was very personal, and it didn't change anything about the way he presented himself in the movie. And so I think when you ask, and I'm taking too long to say this, but when you ask how do you get it real, well, you have to be trusted, and you have to, you have to do your part to justify that, you know.
Thank you. It was great. Anne Wade.
Thank you. Bobby, you have my deep thanks and congratulations on a movie well done. This movie is needed. I'm so grateful to have it. And I speak to you as a degree holder in anthropology who understands what it is to get an authentic interview. And a mother whose son just got married last weekend. I'm Gen X and he's a millennial. And he's still in that phase of life where he doesn't want so much advice because they think they know it all because it's all going so well. I mean, he's just well respected at work and with his peers. And having lost his father at 4, he credits me with learning his communication, which I find terrifying because I learned all my good communication after he graduated from college. So anyway, all the things in this movie and your breadth is just tremendous. Everything you included was essential. And you found a way to have it land all the things I've been trying to tell him and his bride that they just couldn't hear. And so what a gift this is, not just to him. And I do think it's appropriate for all people. But yeah, for the people that are about to start a family, because how I see it is your biggest impact is on the children that are yet to be born.
Wow.
And that's because you're shaping the men and the women who already exist. And I could say so much, but I'll concentrate on 2 parts of your movie that are related. There was the part where the men told the truth about some of the households they grew up in, and the women too, where there was abuse and not being seen. And then later, you quoted some of the men on what they wish they knew when they were younger.
Yeah.
So if there was any change that you were going to make, because you did ask, who is my audience? If there was any footage from the young people that you interviewed, maybe them being so obviously arrogant about knowing it all, then that would be a good juxtaposition to help get the millennials in and the Gen Z in before they start their families or when their families are still young. And that's my feedback.
I do appreciate that. They actually weren't that arrogant. They were
Well, shoot, you interviewed the wrong ones.
I was trying to choose people that I respected. But in many ways, they were a little too simplistically woke, right?
Oh yeah.
So I just found, I mean, everybody has their own taste. My son is a filmmaker. He thinks the 90s were the golden age of American cinema. I think the 70s, maybe the 60s. We're just different. And so, I mean, if I learned any one thing from making this movie, it's how different we all are. I mean, I'm looking at a whole screen of people, and you're all different from each other, Yeah. And as you should be, because it's complicated beings that have been shaped by mothers and fathers and romances and heartbreaks, and our children shape us too. And so, I just came to appreciate all that, and I think, the thing that I was looking for is is there a basic human kindness? And I think especially after the recent election, I mean, I'm looking for it more than ever. And so when I see a whole group of people, and I have already a great sense of it just because you put the time to watch this movie, it's heartening. I mean, this is a great portrait of America to me, and you guys. Thanks.
Well,
I hope you show the movie to your son because I'd really like to know what he thinks.
I will, and I'm sure it will land. And I hope you find a way to attract more millennials and Gen Zs, because like it was really poignant for me to hear the men talking about that even though they've been in therapy for years, like their bodies are still retaining the trauma from the parentage of their fathers.
Hmm.
So we want to interrupt that. And thank you so much. Your movie's a great start. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tom Marks.
Bobby, thank you so much again. I saw the movie with Francine when it was at the Raphael for the film festival. And we looked at each other when it was done and we said, my gosh, this has to be shown to this men's club and others. So I'm extremely grateful that you've allowed us to do this and given us the gift of this movie. And I saw so much of myself being raised in a family where there was violence and challenge and screaming, etc. And I saw that in people, and it really had me flash back to what that era was like and realize how lucky I was to have evolved in a different space in my life, to not have to carry that through to my family. But I have one technical question to ask you. Perhaps I'm wrong, but it seems like this particular version of this movie is cut very differently than the movie that you showed at the Raphael. Am I wrong or am I right about that? Or did I just miss some of the messages and I saw it the second time and it really
No, it's the same exact movie.
Exactly.
But I wondered if there were streaming issues by the way you viewed it. And of course, and I was going to ask you, because I've been watching it now on the big screen every time recently. And it's just, for me, it's a better movie when you can see it. First of all, it's definitely a better movie when there's an audience there and you feel other humanity, which even though it wasn't a big screening at the Raphael, you had people. And I also think just the experience, well, this is, maybe it's old school, but like, I wish people went to the movies like we used to and shut everything else out.
Yeah.
No, Tom, this is clearly the exact same film.
I guess what I want to emphasize is I had an
Get rid of this
entirely,
thing.
I'm sorry.
Can you tell us the difference of your experience?
The variety of the vignettes towards the end of the movie of different subject matters that you went into, I was so taken by what I saw that was invisible to me. So I had a very different experience watching it the second time than I did the first time. A better experience, frankly.
Oh, really? The second time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then there's that too, that you had seen the movie once, and yeah.
Yeah.
I have that feeling too when I see movies more than once. I sometimes like them more and I sometimes like them less, but it does seem like a different movie, but we saw the same movie.
Yeah. And I emphasize what other people said. I'd certainly be happy to help with how to get this to distribution, though I see what the challenges are, and you're the professional, I'm not. So best of luck with it, but I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Jim Aldridge.
Like you're surprised. So I'd like to start with one question. This is for men. This movie is for men. Is that correct?
What?
You made this movie for men, generally.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I mean, I think initially perhaps, but really, I made it for whoever responded to it, and
oh, okay. Well,
I quite early in the process, I realized that
We are on Ethernet, right?
It's not us, it's him, because everybody else is okay.
It's him.
Oh, it's Bobby.
There you go. He's back. Yeah, we went away for a second.
So Bobby, are you, speak again?
Hi.
Okay,
So,
back.
so it wasn't me. Oh, okay, cool.
No, go ahead,
Sorry.
Jim.
So I got hooked by the name of the movie, the first thing, and I actually walked in late on this movie, and I didn't really know what it was about, but until something was about like a few good men or good men, and it looked like the movie's made from a perspective of a viewpoint of a feminist, and that hooked me right away because okay, it's a thing for men viewed by but made by a feminist, so I'm going to be wrong or something, that was my viewpoint right away. And uh and then I have another area in my life that but it's a gender thing between men and women right now, and young men and young women. And I have grandchildren that are teenagers and they're in the dating ages. And the boys.
Is it my internet that's breaking up? Or?
Yeah.
I'm afraid so.
Sure.
I'm sorry, because I'm in a timeshare that doesn't belong to me. I'm in New York.
Okay, all right.
So I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I would be afraid to.
Okay, well, that was
We'll make it work.
That was the one thing I saw is that I was hooked from the very beginning of the movie, and it actually entertained me in wanting to see it. I've been looking at men and women's relationships with respect to dating, and I've been married 4 times. No, 3 times, and then almost four times, and then I did a little bit of dating, and what I found out about this is that men and women aren't connecting up. The guys aren't marrying women. They're not paying any attention to women. They've just, and women are getting kind of pissed off about it. They're not approaching younger men. And well, when they do, they're being ignored. And I thought, that's just near impossible. I cannot believe that. So I had one other experience where I was in a course and it was a breakout, and it was 6 women and me. And I don't know why they did that. They did it on purpose. And they were women of color, and they were up in arms about where are all the good men. So being a guy from this course, of course, I said we had an old member who had died a long time ago, and he was great with apologizing to women about us being whatever we do, the guys, to upset them, and it didn't work. I mean, I did that, but I just didn't know what to tell them about what it is, other than it's really inside all of us where love comes from, and it's not it just if you don't have that, then you'll never be in love. And anyway, so if you could roll in something about men and women, why the younger ones are not connecting up, while the guys have left. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but it's a real thing now. And I have a daughter she's given up on men and she's now dating women. And anyway.
Got it. I think this film is handling what this film is handling. And
Yeah.
what you're talking about, Jim, is kind of something else.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Hank. Hank, just start speaking.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Hello, Bobby. Hello, Francine. I'd like to start off with Bobby. I was at, I did see the very beginning, and I am so impressed with your purpose in making the movie and for your grandson. I mean, I think that is, when he is old enough to understand and at the different stages of his life, and he gets to watch this, it's going to mean so much to him. I didn't have that as part of my childhood so much, and a good mentor from my father. But at the same time, I did have good people, and I had a good mom, and that really helped. But that's the main thing that I wanted to share, because your humility comes out in this. Just listening to you talk with everyone tonight really steps up, and you're doing the world a great favor by making the movie. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Hank. Tom Johnson.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I wanted to thank Bobby for all the work he put into making this movie, and for you guys to make it available for us to see it today. Excuse me. But is there any way we can share this movie now? And how can we support your more distribution of your movie?
Thank you so much. I don't know the answer to that yet, because you might have guessed this already. The business of film has not been my forte. And so I have a guy who's a wonderful producer who's made some other really good movies, and he's helping me as a consultant producer. And so, but we know that it's a tough sell to commercial distribution. So one of the reasons that I reached out through Francine to you, all of you, is that I'm trying to find out who the audience for this movie will be. And what I'm coming away with tonight, just after I screened it in New York City with the cinema, and you guys are talking to you, and I'm getting much better, much more detailed response from you, because I only get 20 minutes in the group screen. And I'm just trying to put together ideas for distributors to say there are people who want to see this movie. I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm so happy that you all respond to it. And I will say that. And I don't know exactly. And I should ask you guys, how do you characterize yourselves as a unit? I mean, you're all individual people. I don't really know. How did you refer to it? Someone referred to it. A notable person referred to it as a men's club. How, I'm throwing the question back to you. How does one, I mean, I was lucky, I met Francine, and so she's put all this together, but like, how would you all suggest that I reach? There's got to be groups like you in other cities, right? And
Right. Well, right now you're dealing with 4 or 5 cities right now, because we have Northern California, Southern California, Arizona. That's the clubs. And then, so a lot of these people are members, current members of the men's or women's clubs in those cities. But there are people on from the East Coast. I just sent it out to a lot of my community of people Good. How do we describe ourselves? Uh, we just, and I'm open to anybody contributing to me on this one, but most of us have all participated in what we would call transformational work, self-development, self-improvement. A lot of the work that began in the 70s, that's the kind of work that most of us have done just personally, you know, not as an entire group, but because that's the background that my late husband and I had. A lot of people came from that community and then got expanded by creating the clubs for people to come into. We used to even do these clubs in London. But so all my friends that maybe aren't currently in the clubs, but used to be or know me from any of these environments, but we're all mostly people that have participated in self-development and are interested and concerned about it and like that.
I have a fantasy that there's a lot of you in this country, throughout the world. What do you think of the population? Do you think, how many people do you think, if I was just going to go to say, there are hundreds, there are thousands, there are tens of thousands?
Oh, I know that there's actually more than tens of thousands. There's probably millions. But I would have said before the election, I would have thought there was a much higher number than where we are now. But in the overall population, we're still a very small part of the population, but it is actually even worldwide. So this work has been done worldwide, but really small by comparison to the overall population. And if anyone has any suggestions and ideas about groups or places that that Bobby can investigate. Okay, I see more hands now.
And I can unmute multiple if you want, or not.
Oh, can you? Okay. So why don't we I'm going to assume that these people still want us, that John Montgomery, Tom Marks, David Furshine still have hands up. So, and Ari and Robert. So did you not put their hands down, or they put them up again?
No, they put them up again because he asked a question for people. So what
Great.
I'm saying, so do you want to do it multiple or one at a time or what?
Okay, and we have Francine here who also wants to. So do you want to ask a question?
I want to make a comment that's a suggestion.
Can't hold on a sec.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm off camera, but I'm in the room. I keep thinking everybody in this group loves this kind of film, and that there are a lot of people who would benefit from it that don't know that they would benefit from it. and what I got to was, well, you know, probably the people who got elected recently are not going to be interested in it, but there are people who are sensitive people who have children and parents that would possibly be moved by it and don't know that this kind of thing exists. And it seems like it lends itself to being the kind of film that you want people to watch in their living room with their relatives, you know, and it's just about listening. And it's not like there's any confrontation or anything like that. And I just think it'd be really valuable for people to share it individually with family members. That's all.
No, fabulous. Kind of interesting.
Because you just triggered something in me.
Yes.
It's not going to have to happen this evening, but I know it would be great if literally everybody wrote one or two sentences that maybe that could come to me via email or whatever, because it would be really helpful for me to go back to this consulting producer and say, these people saw the movie on Tuesday, and look at the response. And because what I have to do is convince distributors that there's an audience. And what's great about all of you, that you're thoughtful people, and it's not like, oh yeah, it was fun, or yeah, it was great. You all have something deeper to say. And even if it's just one sentence, it would be, I think it would be, if I were, and I think my guy Jonathan Dana is his name, who's the consulting producer, if I could go to him and say, here's 20, 30 testimonials, right, of people who've seen the movie and really responded to it, and think it would have a wider audience. I think that would be very helpful if I can ask you for that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to say, as much as I don't want to be inundated on email, but
you can have my email, and
let's give out Bobby's email. It's very simple. It's Roth, ROTH dot Bobby. Isn't it dot? No, just Roth
just
Bobby.
It's rothbobby at AOL.com.
Right. Roth Bobby at AOL.com. Richard's putting it into the chat so that you can see it.
You don't have to capitalize the B, but doesn't hurt if you.
Yeah, I did, but the capitalization doesn't
Right.
matter. It's fine.
It can be all lowercase.
Yeah.
So rothbobby at AOL.com.
I would be
Please.
really grateful, because
Right.
nothing would, I mean, when I listen to you, you have all of you had something emotional to say. And that's, I want to go to say to the people that I'm looking to distribute this movie and say, this is not just an audience of, kids, or this is a people who understood the movie, who got the movie, and want other people to see the movie. And it's a big deal. I mean, you're really valuable, because I think that, this is a stupid comparison, but even something like Barbie, people were crazy about that movie for whatever reason, and it really helps. They probably tested that movie a lot because it was so valuable financially, But I mean, you don't get. I mean, you guys are a highly intelligent and sensitive, as you audience, and that's what, because when I go, I'm flying home tomorrow morning, and when I see Jonathan, I'm going to say, it's not just that people watch the movie, it's that they got involved in the movie. They spent time with me right now. Your time. Nobody's paying you to do this, and I think it's impressive. And I think that's how movies build a constituency. It's by having people who are really not just lukewarm, but really into it.
Absolutely. So no, that's fabulous. So thank you, really, thank you all for being here, for taking the time, and for staying with us through the question and answer. And as you can hear, Bobby would really appreciate any and all feedback that you can give him. And the thing that I got out of what Francine said about, this is not me, the other Francine, said about wanting to show it in your living room with your family or friends, is that, I know you like being in the theater and watching it on this big screen, but it also might work for a streaming service. That a lot of things that don't necessarily make it in the movies really do successfully on streaming.
That was my personal that was just me. I think it's better. And by the way, it's something that, the people who want to teach or discuss it, if they can control it and watch it when they want to watch it, and for that matter, go back and look at a part again, or show, that's, I think the movie would benefit from that more.
And then the last thing I want to just ask Bobby, how would you feel if we did one more of these for the people that really wanted to be here and couldn't make it tonight?
I mean, great.
Okay, great.
I mean, one of the great things about making a movie with only money, you don't have to, not, you're not dying if you don't make the money, you know. The important thing is that people see it, and I think that if people see it, they'll talk about it, and other people. I mean, we used to be a thing, the word of mouth, and
Right.
It's you know, word of mouth is not what sells Oppenheimer or Barbie. It's millions and millions of dollars of advertising. But this movie is a word of mouth movie.
This is a word of mouth movie.
The more people that see it, I hope, the more people tell and want to see it. So you're valuable. I would do this whenever you take.
Perfect. Really great. Thank you so much for letting us be able to participate in this. And thank all of you for attending. Go ahead.
I assume, do you have another question?
Oh,
Oh, there's a bunch of people who participated.
it's not showing up on mine.
Oh,
I
it's up
can't
there.
see it from here.
Okay.
Here, there's a lot of people with their hands up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Do you want to
Okay.
just go through them
And I-
quickly? Just
and I-
have them be short, and then just have.
You
them
have to
go
be
through.
really quick. We've got,
I
No
leave
time.
to the airport in 6 hours.
right. So,
Okay, why don't we just start at the top and work our way down?
okay, John.
No, John. Yeah, John. John, this is the same John as Montgomery as before. John, go ahead.
Yep. Hi, I'm back. What kind of spurred a question for me is, what is your why? What is your why behind this? And why did you want to do this? Because I think that's an empowering place to be coming from in putting this out there. Your personal why. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm just coming back from a community of people, and I noticed your attorney friend was wearing one of his hats, which was a Tony Robbins event, and there were.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, his little blue hat says I'm blessed on it. Yeah. So that would be a suggestion, because that was a community of about 22,000 people for 4 days we were together with, and over 116 countries. In that conversation, it's a whole nother community that's it's a huge community. There's millions and millions of people out there that are part of that community. And you might ask your attorney friend, it looked like he might be a fan or a participant in it, but
No, great, John.
yeah. So that's all I have to say. And why I asked the question is, what is your why behind it? Because usually that's the driving force to going through all the things you need to break through to get to where you want to go with this, and why you want it out there.
It's because the Yiddish expression. I get knockers from this evening. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what I'm here for. I mean,
Right.
I don't know how many years I got left, but like having a connection and making movies that people, I mean, this all started because I went to Ukraine and I did something that I felt good about. That I was helping really good people in a really good cause. And not that I was an expert on it, but I just think that especially with the world as it is today, I'm motivated, like I said, by my grandson. I mean,
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
and you're gonna save my grandson. You guys are future.
yeah, beautiful.
Thank
Great.
you,
Thanks,
sweetheart. Tom Marks. Tom Marks.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I
Taylor.
was going to say something first. Hi, it's Taylor with Tom Marks, my boss, and I just wanted to say I want to piggyback on what John just said. There are all kinds of other communities besides the one we're in, I think, who would be interested in this film. All kinds of thoughtful, caring people out there. Most of the people in the film had, a lot of them mentioned therapy. So I would think a lot of psychiatric, psychological communities would be interested in this. And you know, John mentioned, what's his name? I can't think of it. Tony Robbins. But there are all kinds of other transformational communities out there. I think I think all of
There's
them would be
actually a
interested.
community called Good Men.
Well, there you go.
Tom Herndon introduced me, and I get their writings a couple of times a week. It is a community called Good Men. I will pass it on to
Excellent.
Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby. I love the film. It was very moving to me, and it made me grateful all over again for the work I've done on myself, making my life more livable. So it really was validating for this guy sitting here.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing really quick. Bob, you mentioned a story about how you started off doing this filming and you had a camera crew with you, et cetera, and then you realized that was not going to create what needed to be created. And the word to me about why this is so successful is you created safety.
Yeah.
People felt safe to be in your presence. And when they feel safe to be in your presence, they can then be intimate and forthright.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really critical piece moving forward with this for you to realize, because that's a gift and it makes this the success that it is. And when you do it again, if you have to, don't lose that safety because it makes all the difference in the world.
Thank you, Tom. That is the perfect distinction. Absolutely. Thank you. David Furshine.
Yeah, thanks. The thing that this starts off with that I think could be powerful for the hook and for a purpose, because this opens up, I think, into something that can become a much bigger purpose. But it starts off by basically asking, who are you? And you don't got to be enlightened, awake, transformed, personally grown to want to know who the hell are you? And I think if there was a bit more of an impetus, well, you said it gave you nachas. I'm glad you said nachas, because John Montgomery Stein, who actually was not born Jewish but pretends that he is Jewish and actually is Jewish, he really appreciated that when you said it. So, but you know, the whole point of that is like that's what everybody wants. What everybody wants is aliveness. What everybody wants is vitality. Whatever this starts to tap into who the hell are you? And if you don't get a chance to, you know, like every time you hear people saying anti-woke, I want to shoot them. I feel like saying, you know what your problem is? You need to wake the fuck up. That's what you're missing, is wake the hell up, you know? Now, obviously, that's the wrong thing to do and to go about it because it just pisses people off half the time. But if you start off with something like this that says, who are you? This film is about asking, who are you? You know, there's a big field wide open to explore, and you can put that to anybody, no matter how awake or not they are. And that's what I want to toss out, and I'll email you and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Great. Thank you, David. Robert Newman.
You missed her.
I missed him. It's okay.
Go ahead, Robert, first.
Hi, it's actually Mary Claire.
Okay.
Hi, Bobby. So just quickly, when you asked about this community and where we came from, somebody just said it. It started off, my recollection was it's a safe place for the men to be together. And that was the foundation of this group. And also Louis and his friend Lloyd, one of the things that they had was that when before Lloyd came along, Louis said, no one stood up for me until you came along, Lloyd. So we've been together 40 years. Some of us owe our lives and our relationships to this club. So this is a very special group, and we're very blessed and happy that you can share this with us. And if any people on the planet that want to see it succeed and go beyond this group, we're the ones who can do that. Practical level, I don't know the real exact name of it, but the Obamas are working in some of this area with some of their films, I believe, and there's like 100 good men or 100 Black men, or there's some of those kind of fraternal organizations like that. So that would be my practical suggestion. But thank you so much. It was wonderful, and continued success. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ari.
Can I just say one?
Yes.
One thing? I don't want to sound ungrateful, but can we have to wrap it up soon because later here, and I gotta.
He's got just a few hours before he makes his flight. Okay, let me just call on Ari, and I think we're gonna have to maybe leave it there.
Okay, I will do my best to be very, very brief then. So you were talking about trying to figure out what are the demographics that are interested in this movie and that would benefit from watching it and that should be made aware of it. Well, on behalf, I'm suspecting that I'm probably the youngest person here. So on behalf of the millennial Gen Z's simplistically woke demographic, like I can give you what is the technical term in modern sort of woke parlance for the demographic you're looking for, which is you are looking for organizations that are helping men divest from institutional masculinity. Like what you're
institutional masculinity?
Yes, from essentially patriarchal, oppressive systemic ideas of what it means to be and to navigate the world as a man, right? Like, for example, gender studies classes, I think would be a great place to pitch this. I think, for example, a lot of religious or community organizations that have like brotherhoods or things like that would be another great place to pitch this. Anywhere where you have groups of men getting together to talk about the experience of being a man, or people who are interested generally, like from an academic standpoint, or from a general examination of patriarchy standpoint, what are the impacts of that on men? Any demographic that is looking at that as a topic would be a place that it would be worthwhile to pitch this. There are lots of different kinds of men's discussion groups. I really think that what Mary Claire said really hit the nail on the head, which is anywhere where groups of men gather to be safe would be a place where this could be pitched as a conversation starter.
Excellent. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
And thank you, Bobby. And I'm sorry I'm not calling on Jai and Tom Johnson, but please write to Bobby whatever it is you wanted to say. I want to thank everybody that did hang in with us until now. So appreciate you all being here.
You guys, I just have to say, really, very, I feel very lucky to have met Francine and we hope we meet all of you. Really.
Fabulous. Thank you, Bobby. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Francine.
Safe travels tomorrow.
Thank you. And we will do this again. It's great.
Great. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.